Okay.
Hello, my name is Oracle Laura, and this is the Oracle Laura Show. Today I have a very special guest. He is a film director of both horror movies as well as Christian films. And today we're going to be discussing those genres and how he manages to be able to do both. It's going to be a very interesting topic. Please welcome my very special guest today, John Michael Hightower Jr. Hello, John.
How are you?
I'm very good, thank you very much. So please tell us, first let's start about your horror film. I believe that you have one that you filmed, there's a series of 4 of them and you're working on the 5th?
Actually, that's Dark Intentions. That's my action series that I'm actually about to release the 5th one, hopefully within this month.
So that's an action film.
Yes, and so it's got a little bit of a following on YouTube to kind of establish myself as an action thriller director and writer and maybe even actor in that aspect. So and the chosen one is the horror film that may actually be changed to something else. That's the working title right now. That's kind of the title I worked on, but the distribution company is talking about changing it to something else. So I have to be open to that, I guess.
So the film itself will be the same, but just the title is going to be changed from the chosen one to possibly something else.
Possibly something else, something a little more recognizable in the horror genre, I guess, for marketing purposes, is what they told me.
Have you done other horror films too, or is it just the chosen one that you've done?
That's the first one I've done. It's going to have 2 sequels. It's going to be similar to like the Insidious films, where the next sequel is going to kind of wrap up a little bit of the last one and then kind of go back and tell another story until towards the end. And then the 3rd one is going to kind of bring both stories together and kind of be a big conclusion. Definitely open to doing other horror stuff. It's just this is the first one I've written, and I tried to make it a very What Lies Beneath meets, Insidious meets The Shining kind of psychological aspect of it, and that's what I tried to do. I don't know if it was successful, but I guess we'll see when people see it.
What Lies Beneath, I happen to love that movie. I've seen that several times. So how is it similar to that one?
It's got a story, it's got intrigue, it's got mystery, it's got plot twists. At least those are the things I attempted, and it's got a lot of, like, a lot of horror films nowadays are kind of just gore and just cheap scares. With respect, of course, I wanted to go with something much higher than that, to the point where a lot of people are just saying it's not a horror film, it's a thriller. I get so upset. I'm like, no, it's horror. It is. But they was, no, it's a supernatural suspense thriller. I'm like, it's horror. Darn it.
I actually like what you just said. I find myself, I prefer the ones that have a bit more mystery to them and they're more thriller. I don't like ones that just show lots of gore, like you mentioned, because I find that that's not scary. Like, nothing scares me. It takes a lot to scare me.
And it's easy to get desensitized to it, and it's just not thrilling anymore.
Yeah, if you get used to them, if you watch so many of them. But I don't know, it's more because, as a psychic medium and me having so many horrific dreams that come true, I'm sort of used to it. And it takes me a lot to get scared. I think The Conjuring was pretty well the only one that sort of almost got me a bit scared. I sort of jumped a couple times. But other than that, it takes a lot. So I don't like ones that are all bloody. It's not scary. It's just gory. I find there's a difference between gore and the fear, the scariness.
Totally.
So tell me a little bit about Dark Intentions then. How did you end up making 4 and then you're going to be making the 5th one? Huh?
Well, I because I'd made my first feature film called Song for the Wounded in college when I was just barely, even on my feet. And that was an incredible feat in and of itself to get that film done. And that was in many ways a miracle that any of that actually got done. An hour and 45-minute feature, considering a lot of songs, original songs and score and stuff like that. And that was a lot of my first opportunity to do all that in that film. And then I kind of rode the crest of the wave of that success into Dark Intentions. I'm like, well, I've proven that I can do a full feature now. Why not do an action picture? So I did my first car chase in Dark Intentions, and that was I wrote that, always wanting to kind of go for the modern film noir PI kind of thing. Like, what if we took Farewell My Lovely with Robert Mitchum and we turned that into a modern kind of, because with a little bit of a twist, because private investigators don't do any of the stuff they used to do back in the Cannon and Mannix days. I mean, they track down cheating husbands at this point. That's pretty much what they do. It's so what if I were to have a private investigator, former cop, who actually had a real adventure? That was where I wanted to start the story, and that was the point we started, and it just evolved almost completely into something else. And I'm very glad that it did. But that was the genesis of the story, is where that developed. And on the realistic side, on the other side, the production side, I had still a lot of people from school involved, and we kind of just got together and did it. And the school at the time I was going to, the film school, had a lot of control and a lot of say over what I could and could not do. They were not happy that I decided to do a car chase, but I believe the big man upstairs worked it out, and I had a lot of help, both from inside and outside the school. And we got that film done, and then I graduated, and some school people kept in touch with me, some didn't. And so I moved on and just moved the franchise forward. And the story continued to develop as I met more actors who were interested in it, as I moved forward with it. And I learned more about stunts. I learned more about stock footage. Only YouTube movies, not very rarely do I use those in other films, but I was able to concoct almost a full car chase, with the exception of just insert shots, completely on stock footage.
Why did the school not want you to do the car chase?
Liability.
Okay.
And they weren't convinced that I was professional enough to be able to handle it on my own.
Right.
Speaking bluntly, if I may. But they enough people vouched for me in the school, and we moved things around, and we got it done. And the franchise itself went from, and a lot of people were either really on board with this, or they really weren't. It took a kind of that film noirish, kind of on a journey kind of feel, to almost like an adventure story. Like the other thing I can think of to compare it to is kind of like the Fast and Furious movies. It starts out like a street LA racing movie, and then all of a sudden we kind of morph into this. Now we're big action heroes going after bad guys and just using our cars to do it. That's kind of how this franchise kind of evolved. Seth is this down on his luck, PI trying to redeem himself, and then all of a sudden he realizes he has this mortal enemy who he's supposedly supposed to be working for. And now 3 out of the 5 films he's on the run, and 4-ish out of the 5 films he's on the run. And it becomes this journey and this adventure that ends, with college kids and crying and hugging each other, and that you totally didn't think that was going to end. Prison Break was actually another show that had a similar ending. You have this intense show with, murder suspects and, breaking out of prison, and all of a sudden it's a group hug in the end. So that's kind of how this show kind of ends. Of course, not everybody gets a happy ending, unfortunately, and that's the way I wanted it. But you'll just have to see when the number 5 comes out later in February.
How did you get into the horror film genre?
Just trying to be respectful to other filmmakers that don't get this kind of freedom. I just chose to do it. Like, I literally just, in making Song for the Wounded and making the Dark Intentions films, I basically just made the decision to write the script. And then the point that I decide to make the movie is when I start production. I've written some scripts that I haven't moved forward with yet for various reasons. Not very many, but I've done a couple. But once I decided to move forward in production, that's when I've decided to make the movie. And I just basically decided, I've got enough people who I think we can get this done. And so we just go out and do it. And we run into problems along the way. When you're working mainly with volunteers and you don't have budget, it's very grueling, but you just have to want it. And you have to believe that, you have, maybe you have a higher calling and there's a purpose, behind what you're doing. You just have to believe that and just move forward. And just, a lot of people said, well, I'm sorry to hear this is a failed project. I'm like, no, it's not a failed project. It's going to be done. With or without you, respectfully, it's going to be done. I've had to say that to a couple of people. And, it has been done. And some people are very proud of it. And some people are just like, what was this for? I mean, it's not going anywhere. It's on YouTube. Well, the current producers that hired me for this most recent film went on IMDb and said, oh, Dark Intentions, 90 minutes. Dark Intentions 2, 92 minutes. Dark Intentions 3, 2.5 hours. Dark Intentions 4, 3.5 hours. Yeah, this is somebody that wants to work. And that's basically why they hired me.
So the Christian film,
Yes.
that's Hope Again.
Hope Again. Mm-hmm.
How did you get started on that one?
That one is developed from the realization that as a quote unquote Christian filmmaker and a quote unquote faith-based filmmaker, we've got to throw out all these labels here because that's how we are labeled in the industry. We can't avoid them. I'm going to have to eventually at some point do something that is going to be labeled a Christian film. Now, when I was in school, I was told that, you're going to want to do one or the other. You're either going to want to do, sorry to be overloading on this, secular projects, and then you need to do your Christian projects. Don't try to mix and match. Don't try to do in between because both audiences are going to feel cheated. So with Song for the Wounded, I tried to bring that in a little bit. I found out they were right. So I said, okay. So I tried to take Dark Intentions clearly from a, action thriller perspective. There was a little spiritual element involved, but it was mainly for a secular audience. And then of course I tried to do a film for the faith-based audience. And there was a woman named Denise Morris who had added me on Facebook and said that she had 3 daughters that acted. And one of the major problems that we have early on in these films is casting these films. And where I'm going to find all these actors. I have big casts. So I guess I just made the decision to write a faith-based story based on her and her 3 daughters. And I sent it to her and she absolutely loved it. And she said, let's make it. And this is the first movie that I've actually had a producer partner help me out on this film. And it was a great experience because we split all the responsibility in half. And, we shot it both in Ohio and here in Atlanta. And we had one pickup day in Jacksonville, Florida. But other than that, she handled all of the stuff in the Ohio shoot and I handled all the stuff in the Atlanta shoot. And we both helped a little on the Florida bit. And it was a great experience. We shot it on a 5D Mark IV, Canon 5D Mark IV, first film in 4K. I'm operating on Blackmagic 6K now, but I loved that camera. I loved how gorgeous it looked. And so that basically happened. And then we found distribution for it. And in a lot of ways, it is my best film to date. It certainly is going to feel like a real movie, not like the amateurish feel the Dark Intentions movies had, and then maybe the low budget feel that the Chosen One horror film would have. So.
I am so glad that you said it, not me. Because
I'm going to be honest with myself.
I was so impressed with Hope Again that was my fave. I wanted to tell you, I couldn't wait to get you on my show and say, Hope Again has such hope. It really does. And I would love to see it. Get this. I would love to see it become a TV series.
Well, I'm not sure if it'll become a TV series, but we definitely are planning at least one sequel for it. In fact, we're actually getting the beat sheet together for the second one. I think we might end up doing, Denise and I might end up doing some kind of a series, but that would require funding. I mean, I'm actually doing a 13 episodes series myself called Coffee Shop. It's 13, 22, 25-minute episodes. And man, I started that 2 years ago, and in between the 9 other features that I'm working on, that still hasn't been finished yet. I've got maybe 7 episodes of those completed, but I still got more to do. So
I was really impressed with the acting. Those young actors in The Hope Again were so impressive.
aren't they?
I mean, I can tell talent, and I always know what's going to do well, you know, regardless of whether it's in the film industry or whether it's in the business world. I always know what's going to make it. And I watched that and I'm like, this is it. This is the one.
I feel so blessed to know them and be able to work with them and just really truly call them friends. I mean, they've starred in another Christian action film I'm doing now called The Love of Money, and it's they're playing very different characters, but that charm is still there, and you'll get to see them in a different light, and you know, it's a lighter action film than Dark Intentions was. It's not going to have that darkness and that grittiness that Dark Intentions have. It's going to be much more lighthearted, not so much an action comedy as it's going to be just a really fun, you know, tongue-in-cheek but yet serious action film. And I'm looking forward to everybody who's interested in Hope Again and who's interested in Dark Intentions seeing that, and just hopefully their dreams and hopes won't be shattered when they see what I've done with that film. So we'll just, you know, throw it out there and see if they like that too.
So getting back to what you said earlier, you were talking about how your fans, you know, they want you to sort of pick one.
Mm-hmm.
Are they very opinionated about your other genre and not being able to accept that you do the horror, and the horror fans are sort of surprised that you do Christian, or what do they usually say?
I've received, in all the people I've talked to, both inside and outside the industry, I've received very little pushback to my cross genre. I guess I know some people that kind of just that are big fans of the action stuff that I do, and they're, you know, they kind of just accept, well, you know, he's got to do his little cheesy, you know, chick movies. He's got, you know, I do have to admit my girlfriend did really like, you know, Song for the Wounded and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, you know, they accept that I got to do my little faith-based movies like that. They probably won't watch them, but I don't get really much, you know, pushback from them. Some of the Christian industry doesn't understand horror. They don't understand that it's not such a terrible genre. I mean, if you read the Bible, if you read the New Testament, there's exorcisms in the New Testament. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just, and I think that the Christian audience is very put off by the way Hollywood displays, you know, what we call sensitive subjects like that, exorcisms, and, you know, like the demons always seem to have more power than they really would in real life, you know, again, if you're approaching it from a Christian perspective. So the initial thought of me doing a horror film is just like, why would he do that? But then when you watch The Chosen One and you kind of get that it kind of plays on the spiritual perspective, just like a lot of horror films do. Like, you can totally do spiritual stuff in horror films because people are expecting that. They're expecting you to talk about exorcisms and demons and Jesus Christ and all that. They're expecting to hear stuff like that. And what I just did is just take it a little further and just, you know, put a little more emphasis on Christ part of it rather than just, you know, the demonic portion of it. And I think that, you know, if your Christian audiences are willing to give it a chance, I think they might not be as offended as initially they would be.
Well, I sort of touched on it earlier. I don't know if you noticed, but I said there was just one horror movie that sort of got me a little bit spooked, and it was Conjuring. And there's a lot of religion in that. And they talk about exorcisms as well.
It is. That one has been more of the, I'm going to use the word neutral. That franchise has been, I'm not going to say like gung-ho Christian, but it's been respectful to Christian perspectives and making it look like, you know, the people of faith, the two main characters, they're believable as they could be people of faith. This is obviously not, you know, respectfully speaking, of course, this is not like secular people trying to pretend like they're Christian people and it's not believable. No, in The Conjuring, it is believable. Like it has been respectful And then a lot of Christian audiences do appreciate stuff like that, but then you're always going to have the audiences that just want, the in your face, fall on your knees and accept Jesus right now kind of. You're always going to have those people. And I like to cater to all different audiences and all different walks of life. People who have no interest in hearing because they've heard it a million times. They've grown up in church. Everybody's phony. They don't want to be preached at. Totally get it. Secret Shoppers is a chick flick, another quote there that we're working on, that's going to have a very secular perspective, but it's going to have a lot of morals, and it's going to have a lot of, the two main characters, the two women, finding themselves in a non in your face spiritual way, but still church is still mentioned, that kind of stuff. So it gives it some full circle. But yeah, back to the horror stuff.
You were saying phony. So it's quite interesting that you mentioned that word. Let's talk about that. There's a lot of people out there who want to believe and they want to have faith that there's something out there. They want to be spiritual. They want to believe that there's more to life than just what we see around them, especially in today's day with all the chaos. And they want to be able to believe in God, but because there are people in church and religions who have disappointed them, who have been who have betrayed the trust. They lose that faith. They lose the faith, at least in church, or worse, in religion itself. And so bringing these kinds of movies is possibly a good idea. It possibly rebuilds their faith. It shows that religious people are human as well, and they make mistakes. They're not perfect. I'm a spiritual person, extremely spiritual. And the reason why I don't choose just one religion anymore is because I was raised that way. My father wasn't raised Christian, he was Freemason, but he became Christian. My mom's family, I believe, is Jewish, and she was extreme Catholic because her mother was. So I ended up growing around all these different religions. I was sort of Christian. We go to Christian church, but my mom was really Catholic. And then my father went into Rosicrucian, because of his family's background with Freemasonry. So I'm a very spiritual person. I've watched a lot of horror movies that include that. Because I'm a psychic medium, I end up watching, horror movies as well. And I ended up watching Stigmata, End of Days, Constantine,
Love End of Days,
Exorcist. I watched all the movies that included religion, and there's even religion in Carrie, the Stephen King movie Carrie. The mother was overly religious, so she used it in a bad way against her daughter, and it showed that conflict between them. And so I think it's very important to not have fear of having it in your movies. If you're going to do horror movies, like I said, Conjuring pulled it off. That movie did really, really well. So I wouldn't worry too much about mixing them together, keeping them separate. I don't think you need to keep them separate too much.
There will be some that will be kind of mixed. There will be some that will obviously be, the nice cookie cutter, just marketed for the audience that are going to do well, and less quote unquote experimental, I guess, if you will. The main thing that I try to get to push through, especially the Christian films and stuff like that, is that it really starts with a relationship with Christ. That it really starts with you and him one-on-one. And it really needs to be about that, because then when you go out into other churches and you see people who are not perfect and who fail every day, and they try to be what the Bible says, to bear each other's burdens, and they fail at it, your foundation won't be shaken, because you'll realize, okay, I need to be the best person that I am, but I need to realize that, I'm no better than these people. I have also failed other people. I have also done all this kind of stuff. And being a leader and being a director and producer of my own films, I see my own mistakes slam me in the face every single day. And I have to ask my cast and crew, show me grace for my mistakes and my failures and shortcomings. And most of them do, here and there, we've had some people quit, but so that's the main thing that I try to get through on films. And I'm learning about other cousin religions, Judaism, Mormonism, Catholicism, and I'm learning about what their takes are about, your relationship with Christ, and what you do and do not have to do that are different than just Christian aspects of it, and the denominations, the Methodist, Baptist, Presbyterian, Wesleyan, all that kind of stuff. So you mentioned earlier you're being pulled from Jewish Judaism and all that kind of stuff. I'm still learning about like what their take on Jesus was, and because that's really important. Different foundations eventually take the same thing and then they kind of go different directions with it. So I eventually would like to educate myself and be able to maybe address our thoughts on, this is what is consistent, and this is where other cousin religions have different views. Like from what I understand, Judaism, they don't believe that Jesus is actually the Son of God. So, and that's like the complete foundation of what Christianity is. So I'm definitely interested in learning more about that for sure.
Yeah, I like to try not to pick one religion for that reason. I like to try to take a little bit of each religion and believe in what I feel comfortable believing in their practice.
Yeah.
And rather than follow everything they say. And I like to have also the belief that every religion is in a way believing in the same thing. They're believing in a creator, a spiritual being who created us, who's watching over us.
And looking for the same things. Yeah.
Pray to. So in a way, that's my belief. I like to believe that I'm just spiritual as opposed to religious, and we are all believing in the same thing, but we just give it a different name.
Yeah, all about those labels.
Yeah. And that's not to be, safe or anything, it's more, I think it probably has a bearing on the fact that I was raised that way. I was raised with so many different religions around me. It wasn't like I had to pick one. So I just became spiritual in all aspects.
Yeah, try to make sense of everything.
Yeah, I sort of combined it all into one in a way, and didn't give it a label, didn't give it a name. It's worked for me. It worked really well. What would you say to people who want to take directing or become an actor? What kind of tips or advice would you want to give them?
Well, a part of it would depend on if they want to be solely an actor or solely a director, because we're vastly approaching, if we're not even technically in a period now where it is not unusual for people to do both. I started out wanting to be an actor, and I told myself if I was ever in an action movie, I'd make myself the action hero. And so we've gotten that out of our system. So, so if you want to be an actor, you take steps towards getting a demo reel together, and just make little scenes to show what you can do. Get an agent if you choose to go that route. And if not so much an agent, get other people on your team that you can market with and that you can network with. A director, you're either a director or you're not. It's just one of those things where that's technically a crew position. So unlike most other crew positions, you don't get a job on set. Again, this is from my experience. You don't get a job on set and then just kind of work your way up. It's just a director is a very unique position on the crew, to where you're either a director or you're not, like I said. So if you want to be a director, go out there and shoot your own stuff and make your own stuff. I realized my passion for directing early on in college, and then eventually writing as well. But I would say that my career path from here's directing and here's acting has gone like this. And part of the reason for that is because acting, you got to take acting classes, you got to get training. I mean, you just got to do it. I mean, other casting directors are not going to feel confident, paying you and putting you in front of and representing you like that. We hired these people if they're not convinced that you know what you're doing. But I mean, directing, you can go out there and direct your own stuff. And if you're your own editor, which I am as well, you can do it at your pace. So other than putting myself in my own stuff and doing a couple of shows for another station last year, I've pretty much just been directing and doing my own stuff. And once, we make some royalties off of what I've already been doing, maybe I'll be able to spend more time actually getting into the acting stuff, because right now I'm just full blown directing. So if people are interested in doing one or the other, those are the paths that I want to do. If they're interested in doing both, if they're interested in producing their own content, or if they're wanting to sell scripts, I would say start with the writer-director route. Start with writing and directing your own material. And it's going to be hard. It's going to be tough. And you're not going to get a lot of people that are going to take you seriously. You're not going to get a lot of people, I didn't say any, but you're not going to get a lot of people that are going to look at what you're doing as valuable, because you're on the same level that they're at. And it's going to take time to climb that ladder, but you got to move forward with it. You got to not settle for, well, this is too hard and I can't do it. Well, I don't think the movies I've released so far are fantastic. Quite frankly, I'm embarrassed for some people to see them, but they got done. And at the time, that was the most important thing to happen. Now, of course, I have higher expectations of quality, and I have higher expectations about how things need to be done. So just getting it done is not, it's not the goal anymore.
Well, we learn from our mistakes, right?
Exactly.
I know I've made many mistakes. I'm not perfect.
And you've got to be willing to, you can't start out wanting to be the best out there. You got to be willing to fall on your face and fail in front of other people. And you're going to run into people who think that they're better than that and they don't need you. And that's okay. You got to just show them grace and understand that, your journey is going to be different than theirs. And I think eventually I started running into people that saw the worth in what I was doing, and were more willing to help out. And that's how I've been able to do 9 different features at one time, in addition to being patient with people and having a spirit of humility, and not, oh, look at what I'm doing. And, the very second someone would not show up on set, or not, value my project over other stuff they're doing, you just have to just realize, look, you're still in the waiting period, and you got to be willing to be humble and love others despite the fact that they don't think that you're worth their, and you can't let that affect you. And eventually you'll make that, what you're doing will eventually become obvious. And I think we're just now about to start to open that door with The Chosen One, possibly with a different title, and Hope Again coming out sometime, hopefully in May. We'll see what everybody's reactions is, and we'll see what that leads to.
What would you like to say to your fans?
For the very few people who are probably watching this recording, or that I have shoved in front of your face because I'm really excited, and you're probably just like, all right, it's John Michael, I'll watch it. Or for maybe the potential fans that I really do have out there that I don't know, I appreciate all of you, praying for all of you. And it's a privilege to be able to do what it is that we're doing, what I'm doing, and to be able to be on this show and other shows. Vegas Voice, one I was on previously, and I'm very humbled and appreciative to be able to do this, and hopefully to have impacts on people who have different thoughts and different views on religion and filmmaking and just life in general. And thank you for listening to me, listening to some no-name yellow dude from some town in Beaufort, Georgia, US, because I believe you're in Canada. So yeah, I'm just another no-name with an opinion, trying to make it in the world. And that's the popular thing to be nowadays. So I try to be one of the more quieter voices, because there's a lot of loud voices out there that are trying to tell you a lot of different things. I'm trying to take a different route there. So, but thank you for listening, and hopefully you enjoy what I do. I'm trying to keep up with modern filmmaking. I was raised on Gunsmoke. I was raised on mid-90s syndicated TV shows, Hercules, Legendary Journeys, Xena, what else was I watching at the time? I was still watching Gunsmoke and Petticoat Junction and Green Acres and all that kind of stuff. And modern movies have been a shock to me in a lot of ways. So I'm still trying to keep up with the quick editing and all the action stuff, all the wraparound shots and all that kind of stuff. But hopefully at least you enjoy what I've put out so far, and look forward to seeing how things evolve. And thanks for watching.
Well, regardless of you being ever so humble, you said something earlier yourself, so I'm gonna have you hear your own words when you watch this again later. But you said to never give up.
Yeah.
And to learn from your mistakes, and just to keep going, and to perfect yourself and perfect your work, and just get better and better each time. And that's what I think it's gonna help you. It's gonna give you that confidence that you need, and it's going to inspire those who are watching us. It's going to inspire those young children who want to become an actor, they want to become a director, they want to make movies, they want to make documentaries, TV shows. You're going to inspire them by not giving up.
Right. The last little quickly thing to say, there's two major personality types that I run into in the industry, and that is the choleric, get stuff done kind of person, but never, I know several people like this that never take responsibility for anything. It's always somebody else's fault. I'm professional, you're not. Anytime there's a conflict, sorry, I need to rid myself of your toxicity, and just never seems to take responsibility for anything. Gets more and more paranoid, doesn't trust people. You don't want to go that route. That is not the correct way to go. But at the same time, you don't want to be on the other extreme and look at your mistakes and the things that other people have said to you and dwell on them. And oh my gosh, like I'm never going to make it, and just live in fear constantly that you're not as good. You've got to reach some kind of equilibrium where you get to the point where you say, I'm not the best in the world. I will never be the best in the world. But I have no right to treat others. If there's a conflict, you always need to say, what could I have done to better the situation, and learn from it. But then also be like, what, if this person wants to come back and wants to establish things again, I owe that to them. And if you're a believer, I owe that to what Christ has called us to do, to love that person and accept them back. That sounds like, oh yes, of course, that's the answer. But people have a really hard time getting there. And so my encouragement for people is shoot for that equilibrium. That's where you will become successful, because celebrities are just so used to being hated and belittled by people. That's why they have the attitudes they have. That's why they have the defensiveness that they have. And you're constantly hearing in Hollywood, you're not good enough, you're not professional enough, you're not worth our time. And you're either going to respond to that with arrogance, or you're going to respond to that with, you're going to take it to heart and you're going to let it affect you. You can't do either of those things. You just have to say, okay, well, I will just keep trying until I get to that point. And you will never get to that point, because it's always people's opinions. So you're constantly going to have to stay into that mindset and get in the journey. Celebrate your victories, but never get to a point where you're just like, yes, I've made it. Because the very minute you get to that point, you're going to start dropping.
Wise words. Very well said. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is John Michael Hightower Jr. And please let your fans watching this, please let everyone know where they can find you online.
Well, most of them have already found me. I get friend requests on Facebook and Instagram almost daily from just people all around the world that I don't know. And I'm just like, how are you guys finding me? I don't even have anything out yet, like on Amazon or like real platforms. Sorry, YouTube. But they're still finding me. So, I mean, John Michael Hightower Jr. on Facebook and Instagram, and yeah, always come find me. I'm one of the guys that, I like to interact with my fans. I'm about relationships. I know it can get overwhelming at times, but, just force yourself to do it. Let's see. I have a YouTube channel, but I mean, I don't expect you to be dazzled with the stuff I have on there.
There you go again, being humble.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just being honest. But it got done. It got done. Nobody can say it didn't get done. So yeah, just find me on social media, and like I said, I have a couple films coming out, hopefully on Amazon and other streaming platforms through a really good distribution company this spring, and try to keep people updated on social media about those as well. So,
well, thank you so much for being on my show.
well, thank you for having me. It was great connecting with you on social media, and just being kind and encouraging, and hopefully you were encouraged by me.
I am. I learned a lot. Thank you so much. This is
You're welcome.
Oracle Laura. This is the Oracle Laura Show. Please check out my guest online and find his movies. Thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you.